The Saints Row Reboot reveal was a disaster, and my sub count proves it. It exploded because you guys agreed with me, and I didn't mince my words. I said I thought the series was dead. But for this video, I want to see if there's any way they could have saved the launch. Could they have pitched it in a certain way to still keep people interested, still on side, still curious enough that they hadn't made their minds up? And let's face it, there was a big challenge here. To actually pitch that in a way that anyone would have cared about it at all is going to be difficult. But I'm not sure it was impossible. I think there's definitely one thing they could have done that could have at least given them a chance. It's going to be tough, but let's see if it's actually possible to have saved Saints Row. So for this video, I'm going to assume that there is no physical change to the actual product, and that everything we haven't seen, and that includes gameplay, is really good. That's the assumption. I'm going to go off from there. This is purely about the presentation and what they could have changed. So with that in mind, there's a few key problems that they really needed to change. The first is how they actually presented the change themselves. They did it with an air of superiority. They did it to the position that they were correct, that their ideas were correct.
All the things that we've done in the past. We're actually blocking ourselves from the massive creativity we have at the studio.
We've created a set of characters that you're going to want to invite into your living room every day.
I don't even want them in this video. And that anyone that disagreed, that had a different taste, anyone that preferred the first game came from an inferior moral position.
Haters gonna hate.
We talk a lot about the previous Saints Row games, and we're very proud of them. Which is weird, because you don't act like you are. You act like you're trying to distance themselves from them, like you're disgusted by them. And actions speak louder than words. We love those games. Doesn't seem like it. But we recognize that those were games of a time. They made sense in that era, and we were able to do things that felt good back then, but that tone is not something we even want to do today. This is what I mean. There's a paradox there. Oh, we're very proud of them, but actually the tone of them is wrong. What we did was wrong. We felt good about it back then, but now we feel that even approaching anything like that is morally wrong, repugnant. And the issue is when you have that kind of sense about what you created, about the content you created, by default, you will think that the people that liked that are also wrong. And this is why they took the attitude that they did with the others. This is why they started to antagonize the fans, because it was a superior, inferior position. They looked down on those people because they thought they were morally inferior. These are people that sat on the high ground and thought that they knew everything. And when you think you know things like that, when you think that you have the correct position, what's to stop you pushing it? What's to stop you trying to educate people rather than entertain?
We weren't really expressing what this game needed to be about. We need to reboot Saints Row. Rich in diversity.
Embrace your identity.
Feel included.
And the issue is that is the games journalist's position. This is why games journalists aren't popular among gamers. I don't know many people that actually genuinely respect the opinion of games journalists. And so when you take on their position, when you start pandering to them, you will inevitably make yourself unpopular among your actual customer base. You attract people like the gamer, and that's never a good sign. Now, their articles are always incredibly funny, but they're not meant to be. Like, that's why you have this, that Saints Row was always woke. And if you're complaining about it, it's because, I guess you never played it. This is what I mean about that air of superiority, that they think they are better than you. Now, this entire article basically does the normal position that you expect. It focuses on, it's not antagonistic, but it focuses on humiliation and shame, that you're wrong, that you just didn't know, that you're really just uneducated. You have no idea what you're talking about. What you should do is just listen to them. Now, the issue with this position, this attitude, is that it actually doesn't work on anyone with a spine. This is why they're so obsessed with attacking things like masculinity and being male. They're obsessed with that because that is innately standing against this. That is innately having a spine, that you won't back down to this kind of really just base emotional blackmail. It doesn't work. It's never worked. We've had millennia of this. But if you come from a subservient position, it's your only way to do it. You have to do it by pressure. And so, occasionally, even the gamer will come out with something that's correct. Even the gamer is right occasionally, and that is why I'm going to quote them completely out of context and misrepresent their entire article just because it's funny. Because they do say that woke people live to kill fun. Saints Row is fun, ergo Saints Row is not woke. Based. And you don't want those people on your side. You don't want their position, because we've already proven that with things like this. We had Battlefield 5 do it so long ago. Now, actually, this article is really trying to make it seem like it was better than it was. Like, it didn't attack the fans or the customers as much as it did, because the position that they say that Battlefield 5 took is that Battlefield 5 is the game that DICE wanted to make, that if you didn't like the creative decisions that went into the game, you didn't have to buy it. And that's what Saints Row's trying to make you think they're saying. But actually, if we go down to what Battlefield 5 actually said, was that the customers were uneducated, and that if you didn't buy it, you had to accept it, or don't buy the game, and he was fine with that. Do you want to know how EA handled that? Do you want to know how Battlefield handled that? Well, they fired him. Yep, they got rid of him. It's basically the only option. When you have people like that in your company that are attacking your customers, you have to get rid of them. You have to. Because by the time that anyone in your company will produce something like that, if the people at the top of the company do not look at that and are horrified, if the people at the top of the company don't stop that, then, and to use their own wording, you have a systemic problem and that needs to be changed. And the only way you can change that is by changing the company. You need people with the best opinions at the top, and these opinions, they're not the best of anything. And if anyone thinks that this wasn't a big deal, yeah. Well, it cost the guy $20 million. He didn't take his bonus with him. He didn't get what he'd already signed his contract for. This man lost $20 million because he attacked the customers. That sends a message. They saw what happened. There was an example made that if you don't focus on the content, if you don't focus on the customers, you may well lose $20 million of personal wealth. That's a wake-up call for anybody. Instead of being so confident, instead of being so needlessly arrogant, instead of rubbing the change in your customers' faces like this,
we need to reboot Saints Row. We're actually blocking ourselves from the massive creativity.
that those were games of a time.
It was time.
Characters you're going to want to invite in your living room every day.
Haters gonna hate.
Woke people live to kill fun. What you could have done is, instead of distancing yourself from what the fans liked, actually make sure that you're actually honoring what came before, rather than distancing, rather than shaming. Shame doesn't work. Humiliating your customers doesn't work. But instead of saying things like, we don't want anything to do with that, we want to leave that in the past, you could have said that we actually don't think we could have done a good job. Those characters were amazing. Those writers were great, but they're not with our company anymore. The voice actors have long moved on to other projects. That was 10 years ago. We just don't think that if we wanted to do that, we could accurately represent that tone. We don't think we could have imitated it because we're new people, we're a new company. We've got too many new faces, and we just don't think we'd do a good job. You would have sensed that something was wrong, that we would have made an inferior product. And I think that the best way we can make a quality product is to do something that's more like us. We can play to our strengths rather than trying to play to somebody else's. That's an entirely different message. That's not distancing yourself from the past. That's attaching yourself to it. That's praising it. And also, it's praising the customers. You're no longer crapping on them and saying you're wrong. That is the message that should have been pitched. And the same thing worked for the humor. Instead of going, no, that was so 2011, but now we're bringing it into 2021, where everyone's a snowflake and has no taste, where you can't even joke about anything. You should have just said, we don't care what you think in 2021. We don't care how much of a snowflake you are. Although it may not be the same sense that it was before, although we may not be able to nail that because we're different people with different senses of humor. You better believe that we're going to have no limits, that we're going to say what we want, that we're going to joke about anything, and we don't care if you're offended by it. That is the message, because that was the message of the original. If you couldn't replicate their humor because of whatever it was, because you're different people with different life experiences, then fine, you didn't have to joke about exactly the same stuff. But the point that you weren't going to mind being offensive, and when I say that, I actually mean against both sides, then that's fine. The issue comes when you start restraining yourself in comedy, when you start drawing big, thick boundaries around yourself that you can't cross because someone on Twitter may say something about you. And now, you've already proved that you don't mind offending people on Twitter. You're more than happy to attack people on Twitter. Posts that they've deleted, by the way. My old tweet linking to this, it doesn't work anymore. The link goes dead, so I don't know what's happened to that. I'm not sure if that's them doing it or the person who originally tweeted it in the first place and got told he was a hater. I think pitching this from that we really like that, but quite honestly, we just don't think we could have created that because we're different people, is a far stronger message than trying to separate yourself from it and trying to humiliate and shame the people that liked it into being quiet. Because it doesn't work anymore. Not only have we gone through a couple of decades of people telling us that we should remove shame from society, that tends to have the habit of allowing people not to actually be shamed. But also, the people you are attacking are the ones with spines. They're the ones that were never kowtowed before, and they're not going to be now. Just because your own tactics would work on you doesn't mean they're going to work on the people that you're talking to. But they made a bigger mistake. And honestly, everything I've said, I still don't think would have saved it. Because quite simply, that shows everything you need to know. And that means you need to do something massive in order to reassure people. Because even if you're saying one thing, even if you're dissembling and trying to come out with a different message and trying to pitch it differently, and as good as that would have been, as much as that would have been a better message, that it makes people cautious. Because we've seen this in everything, and that is always attached to a lack of talent. It's always attached to a fundamental problem within the hiring practices of the company. And so what are we going to do? Where can we go from here? And there was only one thing I think could have saved it. And it's the one thing that on Twitter they have been constantly denying, constantly turning down. And it's the one thing that customers that even liked the reveal have constantly been asking for. Gameplay. I honestly have no idea why this is so controversial in today's idea, why games launch without gameplay. Every time there's a trailer, I ask for gameplay. Everyone else asks for gameplay. We don't care about some CGI trailer because it teaches us nothing. We learn nothing about the game. So even if your CGI trailer is amazing, most people are still going to go, I'm not going to judge it on that because I know nothing about the game. But when it's bad, when your messaging is bad, now everyone's written it off. Now, even when you show gameplay, they won't care. So if you're not sure about the trailer, and even if you are, the best practice is to show people what they're going to get. And I know some people are going to go, but they did. Some quick edits on a screen for a few seconds is not gameplay. Gameplay is long form. Gameplay is something you probably even can't do at Gamescom. It's something you have to do on your own channel, in your own reveal, and you release it immediately after the reveal so that when people are hungry for new information or angry about what you've showed them, they get hit with the gameplay and then they can see the actual physical product. That allows them to control the first impression. Because if their first impression was bad in the reveal, at least they're immediately hit with something of quality. Now, I'm obviously assuming that the gameplay is good. That's what I said I would do for this video. We haven't seen it, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I think this is the only way they could have changed it, and the customers are asking for it. Even the customers which actually like what they've seen. I can't wait to see gameplay. Any updates? We've got a lot planned later. You should wake up tomorrow and release more gameplay. That's not how this works, but it should be. And this is something that I think a lot of companies, games companies, fall down on. You've had a disaster. Your reveal was a disaster, but you had a plan. The marketing guys came up with a timeline, a schedule, and they're not going to change it. No matter how much of a disaster, no matter how wrong it went, they're not going to change the schedule, even if the only thing that could save the game is changing the first impression, is actually changing it up and being like, oh God, we better bring that forward just to try and change the narrative. Because the longer this goes on, the more set in stone those first impressions will be, the less anyone will care because your hype's gone down, even the anger dies down, and so when you release the gameplay finally, no one gives a damn. I know what they're thinking. They're thinking we'll wait for everyone to calm down and then they'll give us another chance, but that's not how this works. You have to hit them at first, correct their opinion. If you're confident in the gameplay, that's what you should have shown on reveal, and that goes for any game. The only thing that could have done this is long-form content. Is not so much apologizing, but correcting the mistakes, correcting the errors, correcting the messaging, and then actually coming forth and going, look, we told you it was good. I know you didn't believe us, but here we are. Judge for yourself. Their messaging was a disaster. What they were pushing, their attempt to put ideology in front of content was a disaster. And the only solution to that, the only cure, was to put out more content. Instead, what we got was delays. We got told we're not getting anything. They made the same classic mistake which game after game has made. Apex, as far as I'm concerned, was the perfect launch. Imagine if these had done the same. We're rebooting. Here's the reveal. The game's released the next day. Just think what could have happened. Ride the hype wave all along. If they'd nailed the messaging in the middle, they could have been astronomical. I do think there was a way to save the Saints Row reveal. Even with this, I think there was still a strategy they could have used to at least have got people to give them a chance and then immediately hit them with gameplay, which if it was good, maybe it would have been enough to change minds. The problem is that people come out of universities, they get told things and they're set in their ways. They make up strategies, timetables, and they're unwilling to change them. Look at Battlefield 2042. It was revealed months ago and we've seen nothing. We have not Hazard Zone released. They've not released any gameplay. And the only thing we've had is leaks. As far as the actual reveals have gone, COD has crapped all over Battlefield because there was constant information, even if those things were leaked. Big, massive gaps only allows people to solidify their positions so that when it comes out, they won't change. I think the game could have been saved, but I don't think they've managed it. I don't think they can do it. And I think that at this point, Saints Row really is dead. But for now, that's it from me. If you liked the video, press like and subscribe for more videos in the future. And let me know what you think of the topic down below. Do you think you could have been convinced? Do you think that gameplay, if they'd done it at launch, could have actually have changed your first impressions of the game? Let me know. And to finalize the video, I just want to say thank you for everyone that subscribed and liked and commented on all my past videos. I literally went from 426 subs to 1,000 in a week. This week has been insane, and it's been a wild ride. I've been extremely happy with everything that's happened in the last week, and here's onwards and upwards with more videos in the future. So for now, that's it from me. Thank you, and goodbye.
Sheer fucking hubris.